Welcome to the Samera podcast. I'm George, and today I'm talking with Arun Mehra. So, not everyone who doesn't know, Arun is the one that actually started Samera back in 2004. So, hi, Arun.
Hi, George. You all right?
Yes, very good. Right. So let's begin. So, Arun, how did you start Samera back in 2004?
Well, that was a long time back, but I was prior to starting off Samera. I used to work in the city, and I was an investment banker for my sins. But then, incidentally, I married a dentist, and the rest is history. I saw the gap in the market. I saw how she needed help in terms of business and understanding and marketing and finance and all of these things. And I realised that, okay, if my wife needs it, and I'm sure lots and lots of other dentists will need help. And that's kind of was how it all started off, back in this little bedroom that I started on in my dad's house.
Okay, so you started in 2004, rest is history. So, what was it like when you got your first client?
Well, actually, it was before 2004, George. Actually, I started it. It was kind of started the got the first client actually in 2003, okay. And it was a bit of a long uphill struggle to actually get that first client. Yeah. Apart from my wife, no one else really wanted to know. So, but I remember getting that first client, and I was shocked. I was thinking, "Oh my god, someone wants to do business with me." Okay, so that was reassuring. And it just grew from that point, really.
Wow.
And this client was in East London, and he gave me the benefit of doubt, and I started to advise, and it kind of grew from there.
That's incredible. So, if you were a starting person trying to make their own business today, trying to do their own dental practice, what would be the first step, if you will? What would be the first 10 steps of making a business, starting a new business? Obviously, start with a business plan, but can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, no, great question, George. And there's so many things that you have to think about when starting a business. Now, obviously, when I started Samera back in 2004, that was a professional services firm. But at the same time, my wife started up the Neem Tree Dental Clinic, and that was a startup. So we had two startups in our household, and both vying for attention, both two new babies, okay? And that was a struggle and a half between us. So I think a really important aspect if you're going into starting up a practice or starting up any business is to make sure you have a partner who's going to be there to support you if you're going to have that. Okay, the last thing you want is resistance from someone else in the household and worry and concern. You're there they need to support you. Once you've got that buy-in, okay, that's a huge step. And then from that point, okay, then you start the more businessy aspects. As George, you mentioned, the business plan. You need to make sure you got the finance. But you've really got to be quite creative now. And I suppose in this current market, if you're going to do a dental clinic and start a dental clinic, there's a lot of competition, okay? So you've got to be different. You've got to stand out. You've got to be good at marketing. You've got to have good rapport with patients. You've got to have a good location. There are so many aspects to look at. But if I had to look at three things, I know you said 10 things, but I think 3 things to sum up what would be the most important things. The first one would be having a clear vision of what you want to achieve, what type of practice, what type of patients, and get that clarity early on and go with the courage of your convictions to go for it. But then I suppose the next point is it's all great having a vision and business plan and get it, and that will get you'll raise the money. But then it's building that team, okay? Getting the right people to surround you. You get people who are there at the early stages who are there to help you build the clinic, the engineers, the accountants, the legal people. But then you need to build the right team when you're running the clinic, the nurses, the receptionists, other dentists. Really, really important. And then I suppose the third aspect, which especially in this environment, we're in a pandemic as we're speaking today, marketing. Get to know the digital marketing. That's
so would you
key.
just do digital marketing then,
Google,
not like going in newspapers, magazines, just digital is what you think?
Yeah, I'd say, I think it goes back to 2 things. I think digital for sure, okay? So people can see you online. Everyone's on their phones these days. Everyone's searching everything on their phone. So dominate Google, dominate Facebook, that type of thing. But then at the same time, when you're setting up or buying a clinic, make sure it's visible physically on the high street. Is it opposite a supermarket? Is it next to a supermarket? Is it near a train station, near a coffee shop?
That's what I was going to say. So it's really so location is important then, because obviously, you could have your practice in the cheap part of the town, but obviously you won't get the footfall. So how important would location be in choosing where you want your practice? Is it?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think location is very important. You want that visibility in the right part of town. with the right type of customer, with the right type of patients. If it's in the wrong part of town that no one goes to, it'll struggle. And I think in today's world, patients or customers expect it to be visible, but they also expect you to be strong, visible online as well. So you've got to marry the two together.
Okay. So you're saying about, digital marketing. So how would one go about that? What would I do? So let's be, blunt here. I'm starting a practice. I have no idea what I'm doing. I've made the practice. I've hired the team. I've done all this, but I'm not getting the clientele. How can I, start getting patients through digital marketing, as you're saying? So what tools do I need to use, and et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. No, there's a wealth of tools out there, and I think you've got to start with the first step, and the first step has to be getting a good website. Okay, having a website built. Now you can build your own website using WordPress if you wanted to, but I probably wouldn't recommend you doing that. Your time's best doing dentistry. Find the right team to support you to build that website. And it doesn't have to be too expensive. You can start small and then grow from that as you evolve and spend further money later on. But once you've got a decent looking website, it has the basic options on there, such as online booking, your map, decent content, a blog, that type of thing. Then you've got to move on to understanding how Google works. Because Google is still the number one search engine, and it owns number two search engine, which is ultimately YouTube.
Right.
So you want to start thinking, how can I get my presence on Google? And so I suppose it's really on Google per se, there's three main areas. One is paid ads, pay-per-click, and you want to start looking at that.
Okay.
Another one is then organic presence. So you type in your practice name, do you come up at the top in that location? Yeah. And that's down to SEO and search engine optimization, which I could bore you to tears about today, George, but I don't think you really want to know about it. And then the other one, no, I'm sure you don't. And then the other one is kind of Google My Business. So local. So are you on the map? Are you there?
So would that then be like going?
I start with those three areas.
Yeah. So would that be then like with local? Would you then go into the local Facebook groups, trying to sprinkle in information that what you provide?
Yeah, I think once you've got the Google presence, then you're right. You could then start to. There might be local community Facebook groups in the area that you could be part of and add value to that community group. That's a great idea. Okay. So there's so many things, but it's more about engaging and getting on it. And I'm an old crusty really when it comes to digital marketing. I kind of was at the conception of when it all started about 20 odd years ago. But you, George, in your 20s, you've been born and brought
exactly.
up
No,
really,
I've been quite fortunate. Yeah.
Correct, and you when it comes to Instagram, I haven't got a clue what's going on.
To be honest with you, neither do I. That's the thing. It's it's crazy. You go outside and you just see everyone's on their phones, and it must be working because there are businesses that are purely online. I mean, take Purple Bricks for example. They're an online estate agent. They are succeeding massively. So I mean, they they've got all the Facebook ads, they've got YouTube ads, they've got Google ads, they've got ads galore. And it's paying off. So, definitely, I think I agree with you in that sense. That digital marketing is definitely the way to go. I think the age of putting an ad in the newspaper, the local magazine and monthly magazine thing, all that lot. I think those days are over. I think you're entirely right that digital marketing is certainly the way forward, the way we need to be looking.
Totally, I think. You're right, getting a local newspaper. No one reads a newspaper anymore, really, do they? So, but I think a really large part of any business is getting in. If you're especially a dental practice, get to be part of the community. So if you're looking at offline strategies, get to be known in the community as helping in the community. Get to be part of the local business group. That type of thing will always help because people build trust, they build relationships, and that's what ultimately brings you patients.
Amazing. So, okay, now I've set my business. I've set my practice up. I've got marketing, I've got a good amount of clientele, but I want more. As everyone wants, they want to serve more people, they want to help more people. So how would I go about growing my practice? Like maybe starting to make it as a group. I have another practice in another location. How would I go about growing and expanding the business, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, good question. I think sometimes people kind of run before they can walk. So it's very easy to, I think, especially in the last few years, we've seen people buy or set up another clinic, but that's usually at the expense of their first clinic.
Yeah.
So you really want to make sure you have good systems in place in your very first clinic. that can be run without you. And that's the whole point. You want to build a business which is built on systems, not on you. It's very easy to run a clinic. If you're doing the dentistry all day and every day, you can probably make a success of it and make it quite profitable. But if that clinic requires you not to be there, will it still be a viable entity? And that's the key thing. Can you scale it up? So therefore, that means you need to have documented systems, you need to have a trained team, and you need to rinse and repeat, keep doing that. And eventually that will get kind of refined and honed to a point where then you think, okay, I can do another location and do it that way.
Okay. So let's say the practice is thriving, it's at its peak, and I want to sell it. I want to start expanding more. I want that thrill of having a startup once again, and I want to create a new practice from scratch, and I want to sell my old one. How would I go about potentially selling it? What channels do I need to go through? And
I think it's quite interesting. Yeah, great question. Because I know quite a few dentists who enjoy the thrill of starting up a business, but then actually making it to a certain point, then you know what, I've had enough of it. I'm bored of it, running it and all the day-to-day issues. I want to just sell it and then start again. So the way you'd go about selling it, you want to maximize its value. So to maximize its value, you obviously got to make sure its profitability is strong. That's the thing that attracts attention, whether it's from an individual buyer or whether it's from a corporate buyer. It's that thing. So if you maximize profitability, how do you maximize profitability? You grow its turnover and reduce your costs. Okay. That ultimately then leads to something called profit, which in kind of valuation terms, you may have heard of the term EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, George, but that's kind of what accountants talk about these days when it comes to valuing practices. And then you apply a multiple. So you want to maximize EBITDA. If you maximize EBITDA, you maximize profitability, which is ultimately maximizing the valuation of your business. So that's how you do it in a 30-second summary.
Obviously, it's a lot more in depth than that, isn't it? But no, it is very fascinating to know. So, I guess with anything, it's just it's a challenge. It's the, as I said, it's the thrill of starting up a practice. So basically, realistically, starting a practice isn't too challenging, but it is the thrill, it is the challenge, it's everything like that. So really, like, if you were, you're 20, you were my age, you're 24, how what would you do?
Yeah, great question. I always think about that because I always think of people, I suppose, in our team over the last few years. The average
we're getting
age
younger and younger, aren't we?
Just getting younger and younger, or maybe I'm just getting older and older.
Yeah, I think that's it.
So, and I look at everybody and I think, God, okay, if I was in their shoes these days, and if they were going to go into this type of market, I think start early. Okay, you might make some mistakes, okay, as long as they're not too serious mistakes. But surround yourself by good people who know what they're doing.
Networking.
Absolutely. Network. Talk to as many people who've been through it, made mistakes, learn from their mistakes. That's the key.
Yeah.
Okay. And hopefully you won't make their mistakes, but you might make some others. Okay,
mistakes are inevitable, aren't they? That's the thing. You learn from them. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think the key message is, if you're going to start a business or do a business, expect problems, expect failures. But you know what? From those problems and failures, you'll learn, as you said, and you'll get better, and things will improve. Yeah. And then suddenly, an idea that you started with may have turned or morphed into some kind of other idea, which is even more better and more successful.
Yeah.
So do it, take a risk.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me. That's it. Thanks, George. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to doing the next one. Cheers.
Bye-bye.